The drama of Melachim chapter 5 is hard to match. It starts off with the story of Naaman. Naaman is the military general, the chief of staff of the army of Aram, the archenemy, or we'll see perhaps a frenemy of the people of Israel. Unfortunately, even though Naaman is an amazing, talented military warrior, he has a disease of tzarat, of leprosy all over his body that is driving him crazy, and he cannot get rid of it. Well, in his home there's a maid, a servant, a slave, a young Jewish girl, actually Israelite girl, not from the Judean tribe, but from Israel. And she hears about his illness, and she tells people in the household, look, there's this miracle worker in Israel. His name is Elisha, and he can really help Naaman. So Naaman gathers the military and travels with all of the might of the Aramean army towards Israel. And the king of Israel says, oh my God, what is going to happen? And he sends to the king of Israel, he says, look, I have tzarat, I have this disease of leprosy, and I hope you can heal me. And the king is terrified, and he's like, oh, this guy's just looking for an excuse to destroy me. But Elisha tells the king of Israel, don't worry, he will see that there is a God in Israel. He comes towards the city in Shomron, and Elisha tells him with a messenger, go to the Jordan River and immerse yourself in the water 7 times. 7 times. Naaman is furious. He thought there will be some treatment, some course of medication, and he's really mad. But Elisha says, go try it, and his people are like, try it, give it a shot. He goes into the water of the Jordan River. He goes and he dips his body 7 times. He immerses himself in the Jordan River, and lo and behold, it says, Vayashav b'saro kivsar nar. His skin became as smooth as the skin of a young boy. Basically, he had, it's like the people who go to the Dead Sea. It's, absolutely fresh skin. Anyhow, he comes to Elisha and he says, look, how can I pay you? And he offers him a huge amount of gold and silver and what have you not. And Elisha wants to preserve the Kiddush Hashem, the sanctification of God's name that was done by this. He doesn't want to look like he's doing it for the money. He says, I do not want a penny. Go back to Aram and just serve God. And he says, and Naaman says, you know what, I'm going to do that. I'm going to go serve God. I just asked for God's forgiveness in advance. I guess that's a thing, right? You ask for God's forgiveness in advance of a sin. When my master, the king, goes to the house of Rimmon, which is Avodah Zarah, to bow down, I hold him. But otherwise, I am becoming a monotheist servant of God. He goes back, and Gehazi, who we've heard of, the servant of Elisha, who's really not a nice guy, but he is a close student of Elisha, hears that Naaman offered all that money, and he's thinking to himself, all that cash gone for nothing? What do you mean? And he chases Naaman, and he says, by the way, I know my master told you that there's no need to give any payment, but we just got more yeshiva students, Bnei Navi, they came, they're in need. Can you please help them? And he dashes out, he's very happy, he dashes out some gold, some silver, some clothing, and he gives it to Gehazi, who lied to get it. He lied, he said that he's coming with the word from Elisha. Anyhow, he goes back and he comes into Elisha, and Elisha looks at him and says, where are you coming from? And he says, oh, I'm coming from nowhere. And, I just was walking around. And Elisha tells him famously, Ha'et lakachat chalifot usmalot kesef v'zahav, is now a time to do such a thing. And Elisha says, shame on you. Tzarat Naaman tidbak b'cha u'v'zaracha. The leprosy of Naaman is going to be now transferred to you and your descendants. And indeed, that is what happens. That is, Gehazi becomes a metzora filled with tzarat, which is the segue to the next story. I don't want to be a spoiler, so I'll see you next chapter. Really a phenomenal story that is a follow-up to this story and is read as a haftorah.